There exists a particular kind of person who consistently perceives what everyone else overlooks. These individuals pick up on the subtlest facial shifts, decode emotions people work hard to conceal, and recognize psychological patterns that remain invisible to others. They can effortlessly see past social performances, detect deception almost instantly, and sense the unspoken tension hanging in any space they enter. Most people describe this as sharp instinct or exceptional intelligence. But the real story is that this capacity is actually a punishing psychological weight, because seeing through everything always demands a steep cost. These people cannot simply shut their minds down, play dumb, and maintain ordinary social connections. Constantly detecting inauthentic behavior drives them toward isolation, self-doubt, and profound emotional depletion. Not because they are fragile, but because they carry the burden of truths nobody else can comprehend. This is an incredibly precarious path to walk. This unusual depth of awareness will either quietly consume them or transform them into someone remarkable. Today, we are going to dissect the psychology of people who perceive what others cannot and explore how they can avoid being devoured by their own consciousness. Let us begin. To understand why certain people pick up on what everyone else misses, we need to set aside any spiritual explanation. From a neuroscience perspective, this ability stems from high-speed cognitive processing called thin slicing, paired with a heightened sensitivity to detecting inconsistency. Picture the average human brain as an audience seated in a theater. They focus on the stage and take every actor's word at face value. But the brain of a highly perceptive individual operates differently. Their subconscious automatically scans the velvet curtain behind the performance. They catch the damaged props, the prompter's hand, the trembling sweat on an actor's forehead. Their brain functions as a round-the-clock data harvesting machine, perpetually searching for behavioral glitches. Human beings communicate across two channels, verbal and nonverbal. Most people only tune into words, but those who see through things carry an internal radar system acutely calibrated to the nonverbal frequency. They pick up on what Dr. Paul Ekman calls microexpressions, fleeting facial movements that pass in just 1/50th to 1/25th of a second, exposing the genuine emotion someone is struggling to suppress. When a colleague says, "I'm genuinely thrilled you got promoted," the perceptive person immediately registers the mismatch. They hear the voice pitch rise slightly, observe that the smile never reaches the outer corners of the eyes, and catch a brief flash of envy. The brain fires an immediate alert. Data error. The words in the body are telling different stories. This is a lie. This process unfolds unconsciously and in an instant. It is like tasting a spoonful of soup and immediately knowing it has too much salt. No analysis required. The tongue simply delivers its verdict. But what is most alarming is not detecting the lie itself. It is understanding the motivation behind it. When pattern recognition fuses with theory of mind, they peel away the mask and glimpse the other person's hidden insecurity and terror. They look at a boss in the middle of a rage and see a frightened child terrified of losing authority. They look at someone drowning in self-promotion and see a hollow pit of insecurity desperate for validation. That might sound like a tremendous advantage in human interaction, but in practice, seeing through people typically pulls them into three exhausting psychological traps. Trap 1. Becoming the accidental villain. In Greek mythology, there was a prophetess named Cassandra. Apollo bestowed upon her a magnificent gift, the power to see the future and know the truth. But the gift was paired with a merciless curse. Nobody would ever accept what she said. Cassandra could always see catastrophe approaching. She cried out warnings, but the world saw only a hysterical, pessimistic, troublesome woman. People who carry these penetrating eyes in contemporary life are the Cassandras of modern relationships. The reality is that human society is constructed on polished lies and protective masks. We depend on masks to function, to keep workplaces running, to hold families together. Everyone participates silently in a shared theatrical performance, and then these people walk in. The ones who refuse to wear tinted lenses, who arrive carrying a blinding floodlight aimed directly at the dark, decaying corners everyone has agreed to ignore. Consider what unfolds in a romantic situation. They meet someone through a dating app. From the very first cup of coffee, the other person arrives polished and magnetic, talking endlessly about massive business ventures, lavish vacations, and presenting themselves as the ideal partner. An ordinary person might be swept away, fall into admiration, and believe destiny has intervened, but not them. Within 15 minutes, their internal radar has already mapped the other person's entire psychological architecture. They detect that the overconfidence is actually a form of overcompensation. They notice the constant eye movements scanning for audience reactions, proof that this person is performing rather than simply existing. They recognize the feverish enthusiasm as a concealed manipulation script. When they tell their friends that something about this person feels deeply artificial, their friends stare at them like they have invented a problem. You are too guarded. They seem wonderful. Because the crowd only perceives the tip of the iceberg while they see everything lurking beneath the surface. Without any concrete evidence beyond gut feeling, nobody accepts their read. They become the antagonist of their own narrative. The situation grows even more complicated inside workplaces or friend circles. When they possess this kind of perception, they inadvertently strip others of the chance to play their designated role. When a coworker performs the role of victim to a heartless boss, drawing sympathy from the entire office, everyone rushes to comfort them. But the perceptive person already knows what is underneath. They know this coworker has been missing deadlines, operating carelessly, and deploying tears as a manipulation strategy. They hold back their comfort. Sometimes a single grounded comment escapes. Honestly, if your time management on this project had been stronger, your boss probably would not have responded that way, and the atmosphere instantly shifts. That coworker pivots toward them with sharp hostility. Why? In psychoanalysis, this mechanism is called projection and ego defense. When the truth someone has been carefully concealing gets exposed, they experience intense shame and humiliation. To prevent total ego collapse, the brain retaliates. They refuse to face reality. Instead, they recast the perceptive person as the villain. The accusations start flowing, cold, arrogant, judgmental, lacking any empathy. As we can see, truth carries a heavy price tag. When these individuals see through others, they do not earn admiration. They generate fear. They leave other people feeling psychologically stripped bare. And driven by survival instinct, human beings almost always move to neutralize whoever holds their secrets. Gradually, people with this capacity absorb a brutal lesson. Their clarity makes others uncomfortable, so they opt for silence. They smile and agree. They perform ignorance. But that silence hollows out a vast emptiness inside the soul and propels them into an even more frightening trap. Trap 2. The reading people obsession and the spiral of overthinking. When they can no longer trust what others tell them, they begin trusting only their own internal analysis. This is the moment when observation ceases to be a useful skill and becomes a toxic mechanism for managing risk. Call it the detective trap, because they are so conditioned to finding deception beneath every smile. They begin treating everything as a puzzle with a hidden solution. Nothing registers as straightforwardly as it appears. They forfeit the innocence that once allowed them to believe in others. A compliment from a partner is never simply a compliment anymore. It registers as preparation for an upcoming request. A gift from a lover is not received as an act of romance. Their brain immediately interrogates it. What is he trying to cover up? A reply that takes 30 minutes to arrive is not chalked up to a busy schedule. It becomes evidence of emotional withdrawal, a sign of lost priority, the opening act of an ending. They lock themselves inside a loop of perpetual high alert. What drives this constant vigilance? The need to never be blindsided again. They maintain this loop as a form of self-protection. They believe that if they can anticipate every betrayal in advance, the pain will lose its power when it finally arrives. Their sensitivity hardens into psychological armor, but this armor is crushing in its weight, and it seals off every genuine feeling. Through endless analysis and prediction, they slide into a dangerous cognitive pattern known as confirmation bias. Once they have decided someone is concealing something, their mind filters all incoming information to validate that conclusion, discarding anything that contradicts it. They catch their partner's exhausted eyes after a long workday and immediately interpret it as, "She is losing interest in me." They stop inhabiting the present because they are already living inside 10 catastrophic projections of the future. They win every mental chess match. They unmask every deception. They never get fooled. But the price is that they can never truly unwind. Innocence, unconditional trust, the quiet peace of resting your head on someone's shoulder without dissecting the moment, these become things other people get to have. They are like a person with extraordinarily sensitive hearing, capable of detecting structural cracks in a building long before it falls. It keeps them safe, but it robs them of the ability to enjoy music because every sound is immediately filed under potential threat. And the exhaustion does not stop at overthinking. It also flows from another invisible burden, the weight of truths that must go unspoken. Trap 3. Becoming an emotional dumping ground. There is a profoundly unique variety of loneliness that only people who perceive everything can truly know. It is not the loneliness of an empty room. It is the loneliness of standing in a packed crowd, watching a tragedy take shape in real time and being completely unable to say anything. They attend a close friend's wedding. The room is full of cheers and celebration. But in the groom's fleeting glance toward the bridesmaid, or the bride's smile stretched just a fraction too wide to be natural, they already understand. The marriage is being built on unstable ground. They see the eventual unraveling right there at the moment of greatest joy. And yet they still raise their glass and say, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." It feels like knowing the Titanic is heading for ice while standing on the first-class deck watching people waltz. They cannot sound the alarm because no one would believe them, and they would only shatter the moment. Or they watch a warm, well-meaning coworker get exploited again and again by a calculating, toxic superior. They see the slow erosion of spirit in that coworker's eyes. But they also understand that if they intervene, if they deliver the truth, it will be rejected. Because to keep functioning, that coworker has built a wall of denial, a necessary psychological shield they have no right to demolish. Carrying all these unspoken truths slowly bleeds them dry. It produces a quiet, persistent heaviness. They feel genuine compassion for people who do not realize they are being deceived. And simultaneously, they feel a deep revulsion toward the theater of false masks that surrounds them. Their mind is caught between profound empathy and corrosive skepticism. And the most heartbreaking part, because they are so gifted at reading people, they intuitively understand what others need before a single word is spoken. They know exactly how to navigate in ways that leave everyone feeling understood, becoming masterful diplomats. But nobody extends that same gift to them. Nobody truly reads them. Nobody recognizes where they are quietly breaking. People assume they are too resilient, too intelligent to require protection. The one who tends to everyone else becomes like a pane of clear glass. They see through everyone, but when others look back at them, all they see is their own reflection staring back. So what is the path forward for a mind that cannot stop perceiving the truth? They cannot simply deactivate their sensitivity. Forcing themselves to observe less is like asking someone with flawless vision to will themselves into blurriness. It simply does not work. The goal is not to see less. The goal is to transform how they respond to what they see. In therapeutic psychology, This kind of inner evolution requires building cognitive boundaries and committing to 3 core survival principles. Principle 1. Strategic ignorance. This is the discipline of knowing everything while not reacting to everything. Draw a firm line between truth and responsibility. They spot a coworker obviously flattering the boss in a calculated, hollow way. That is the truth. But the real question is whether it falls within their domain to expose that person. It does not. Does it affect their own performance metrics? It does not. Then treat it the same way you would treat a gray cloud drifting past. You can see it is dark, but you do not need to climb up and push it away. Release the ego that appoints itself the guardian of truth. Their perceptive gift is an instrument for gathering intelligence, helping them navigate more safely. For instance, by avoiding collaboration with that hollow person, not a mandate to judge or correct the world. Principle 2. Accept social masks. Much of the suffering that perceptive people experience flows from holding impossibly high standards for authenticity. They expect everyone to be real, to be transparent. But consider it through a compassionate psychological lens. Why do people construct masks in the first place? It is rarely purely about deception or malice. Most masks exist to shield wounds, insecurity, and the terror of being found unlovable. The loud, boastful man at the dinner table is really just a boy craving acknowledgement. The friend who always reads as cold and remote is actually trembling inside, terrified of being betrayed once more. Sometimes, a carefully maintained illusion is the only barrier standing between a person and complete collapse. Once they absorb this truth, the frustration and contempt they feel toward inauthenticity begin to dissolve. What replaces it is radical acceptance. They see the mask clearly, but they resist the urge to tear it off. They simply offer a calm smile and allow the other person to feel sheltered within it. The deepest form of understanding is not exposing someone's vulnerability, but perceiving it fully and still choosing to extend kindness. Principle 3. Forgive the blind spots of the present. To escape the detective trap, they must accept one fundamental risk, surrendering the attempt to control what has not yet happened. When their internal radar picks up a signal that a partner might be withholding something, they can acknowledge the signal, tuck it quietly into the back of their awareness, but refuse to let it contaminate the present. If their intuition suggests there is a 20% probability the relationship ends badly, they must find the courage to hold that 20% and still choose to inhabit the 80% of genuine joy available right now. Living a full life demands the willingness to occasionally be hurt. They can clearly see the thorns on every rose, but if they spend all their time measuring how sharp each one is, they will never experience the fragrance of the flower. Grant themselves permission to be intentionally unseeing sometimes, so the mind can decompress and the heart can beat the way any ordinary heart is allowed to beat. When they develop this capacity for release, something almost astonishing occurs. Their perceptive ability does not vanish. It matures into something far greater. True wisdom. They are no longer a detached scanning machine cataloging every imperfection. They become a quiet lighthouse. They see all the submerged rocks and dangerous tides, but rather than spiraling into alarm, they calmly chart a course through. This depth of perception is a brutal gift, but also the most extraordinary one imaginable, provided they learn to command it rather than be commanded by it. If you recognized yourself in what was shared today, if you have always noticed what others walk right past, hold on to this. You are not alone. So, of the 3 psychological traps we just examined, which one pulls at you most? And more importantly, are you prepared to start practicing these 3 principles to safeguard your mind? Share your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your experience. If today's video offered you something of value, please hit like and pass it along to someone who might also be navigating an overly perceptive mind. Your act of sharing today could entirely shift the course of someone's day. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Remember to subscribe to continue exploring the unseen dimensions of psychology.